Hi everybody and welcome to the Royal Chess YouTube channel. My name is David Kanovsky and this is part 6 of my serial about endgames with opposite colored bishops on the board. Today I have got for you another brilliant endgame with opposite colored bishops on the board, and it is the position from the game between Ricardo Calvo Minguez and Donald Byrne from 1968. As you can see on the board, white is better, of course, in this endgame, because white is a pawn up, and also he's having connected passed pawns on a file and b file. But on the other hand, as we have already mentioned, connected passed pawns are not so great in this type of endgame, and also black is also having his own passed pawn on g file, and maybe the biggest problem of this position for white is that pawn on d4 is attacked by black bishop, of course, and if white wants to go forward, he shall go with his king, but then white is losing not only d pawn but also e pawn, which is of course protected by d4 pawn. So from the first point of view, it seems that black should be able to get a draw in this game, in this position, and not to lose this endgame. But okay, let's examine what happened in the game, and for the moment I won't tell you what is the objective truth of the position yet. We will just see. Okay, here if you would be on the move, I mean by white. Let's think a while what move would you make in here. And of course the right answer is that white needs to play bishop e2 here. Any other move would be a big mistake, because for white it is really very important to stop black g pawn on g5, so protect g4 square, because after black would be able to get his pawn on g3, the position is quite a clear draw. I'm not saying that now it is not a draw, but of course with pawn on g3 the position would be much more better for black. And of course another reason is that from g4 square white is not only stopping g pawn from going forward, but of course also bishop is attacking pawn on e6 from g4. So of course it is very good for white. Black played king c7. It is very logical, and after bishop g4, king d7, of course, protecting pawn on e6. And after b5, black played bishop e1 check, and after king b3, just bishop f2. And of course after going on c3, which is only option how to protect pawn on d4, black is getting another check on e1, and of course the repetition of moves is not what white would like in this position, in this endgame, because he's already I mean he's still a pawn up, so he would like to win this endgame. So white needs to sacrifice pawn on d4, and he needs to play king b4 in here. And after taking on d4, king a5, and taking on e5, suddenly black is a pawn up. But of course here it is clear that white king is much better, and white king can help his own pawns. Meanwhile, black king cannot, it's no time for it, and black king has to defend white pawns from going forward. White played a4, of course, and after king d6, king a6, and here it seems that black is in a big trouble, because what to do? White is just going to play b6, a5, king b7, a6, a7, and promoting a pawn into the queen on a8, and it seems that black cannot make too much against that, because another idea is that black can play b6, a5, and after bishop c3, of course not king b7, because then black would just take on a5, but king b5, still protecting a5 pawn, a6, a7, and so on. But of course, black still has very nice defending methods in here, and black played king c5, and after a5, king b4, and in fact this is not something new to us. We have already seen this active defending method, and as we have already mentioned, in this type of endgame, so in endgames with opposite card bishops on the board, passive defense is usually a good one for a weaker side. But here again, black needs to go for active defense, and black king has to attack white pawns from behind, and here white took on e6, black of course played d4, and after b6, d3, white played maybe a bit weird move, but another very important one. He played bishop f5, because here white wants to get black pawn on d2, and after d2, bishop g4, we have another very nice example of principle of one diagonal, because white bishop is protecting both black pawns together, and of course this is also a very important thing, a very important moment, where we can see why it is so important for white not to let black g-pawn on g3, because with a pawn on g3 there will be of course no principle of one diagonal for white bishop, but in here black just cannot go forward with any of his two pawns. But after bishop f4, it still seems quite fine for black, because white cannot go forward with his king, because of course then pawn on a5 would be hanging. So the only chance for white is to go b7, and now of course king b6 is threatening with a6, a7, and so on. But here bishop c7 is of course a good move for black, and what now? You cannot go b8 of course, because black bishop is just taking your new queen. If you go king a7, black is of course taking on a5 with a king with a clear draw, and what to do? The truth is that after bishop d1, which is of course a very clever move, we can see another very nice example of Zugzwang, because again black would like, or better to say, black would love not to play in here, because all his pieces, or better to say, especially two pieces of him, king and bishop, are standing perfectly. But now one of it needs to move, because of course after g4 white is just easily taken on g4, and okay, if black bishop is moving, then of course bishop d8 is just impossible because of b8 and promoting pawn into the queen. And for example, after let's say bishop b8, king b6 is coming with a6, a7, and so on, and white is easily winning. And of course, the important idea of bishop d1 is that now white is protecting a4 square, so black cannot go king a4, so he needs to go king c5. But after king c5, black king is not attacking white a pawn anymore, so white finally can go for red with his king and to go king a7. And of course now pawn on a5 is protected by b8, so black bishop cannot take on a5. So black played king b8, king b5, sorry. And after a6, king a5. And in fact, of course, white made progress in here, but still it seems that he cannot win this position, because if we go b8 and promoting pawn into the queen, black is just taken, and of course after taking, black is taken on e6 with a draw. We can of course play bishop e2 with protecting pawn on a6 first, but in fact it's not helpful for white, because after b8 and taken, black would play d1 with promoting into the queen, and after taking on d1, of course white a pawn is not protected anymore by its bishop, and black is just taking on a6 with a draw. So the question is if white still has some hidden resources, some magic in here, and he can win this position. And the right answer and the objective truth of this whole endgame is that it is in here. White has his beautiful magic, and the position is lost for black. And the beautiful way how to win this position and how to win this endgame is that white can play b8 with promoting into the queen, and after taking on b8, by white king is of course bad idea, because as we have said, then black is just taking on a6. But after king b7, it is suddenly very clear that bishop on b8 is really poorly standing, is just too passive, and this diagonal is of course too short for it. And again, black is in Zugzwang, because he cannot play with his bishop at all, because after that white is just playing a7, a8, and so on. After playing with pawn, white is just easily taking the pawn, and after king b8, king b5, sorry, white is just playing bishop g4 easily, and after king a5, I believe it is clear for you, bishop e2 is coming, and white is protecting b5 square. So at the moment, neither black bishop nor black king can move. Black only play with its pawn. But of course, after, for example, g4, white is just taking on g4, and after king b8 is doing its winning method again. So, for example, bishop d1, king a5, and bishop e2 again. After d1, taking on d1, king b5. Again, for example, bishop h5, and after king a5, bishop e2 for the third time, and it is already the end for black. So this is a very nice example of an endgame with opposite colored bishops on the board, which seems to be drawing almost all the time, because of course white was better. He had better chances, better king, and so on. But it seemed that black has got good defending resources with its own passed pawns. But as we could have seen, again, stronger side was winning thanks to beautiful Zugzwangs in this time of endgame. So this is really amazing. So be aware of Zugzwangs in endgames with opposite colored bishops on the board. It is really one of the most important things in this type of endgame. And thank you for watching. Thank you for liking my videos. Thank you for liking Royal Chess YouTube channel. And of course, see you next time throughout part 7 of this, I believe, really interesting serial for you. Thank you again, and see you.